most expensive thing about composting is just buying or building the compost bin. Pretty much all the ingredients you see, they're free. They're just from your house. The 4 main ingredients that you need to make good compost: your browns, your greens, water, and air. Now browns are probably going to be what you need the most out of your garden. I'd say 3/4 out of your compost bin should be composed of browns. So browns would include things like leaves, straw, these dried pea shoots from my garden, or really anything else that's already turned dead on its own. For more browns, especially in the summertime when browns are a little harder to find, you can add plain paper bags or egg carton fiber. I would rip them up just so they break down quicker. These will be your high carbon content products that will go in your compost bin, and the high carbon ratio is what will help give you good compost. I don't recommend adding things like sticks or twigs, as they take a very long time to break down. When you're trying to get good compost, you want highly nutritious things. You're not going to find it with sticks. The next key component to good compost is your greens. These are things that are still alive that would be high in nitrogen. So here we have freshly cut grass, dead flowers, or anything that's gone to seed in your garden just before it goes to seed, or else you have your compost bin blooming with whatever you put in. Things that are large like this, I recommend you chop them up. The smaller you chop up things in your compost, the quicker they will break down, as that leaves more surface area for the bacteria to help break it down and increase that temperature. Another great component to add to your compost bin besides kitchen scraps and garden scraps would be manure. Another great manure to add to your garden here is alfalfa. I have alfalfa growing in and amongst my perennial herb garden. This green is high in nitrogen as its root systems go very deep and can get nutrients that other plants typically can't. Chop it up fine and then put it into your compost bin to help add a very nutritious nitrogen high green. Other good greens include stuff from your kitchen. Here's a nasty cucumber, but this is good for the compost bin. Oh yeah. That's disgusting. Oh gosh. Ugh. Don't add garbage to your compost bin. Rotten lettuce makes a great addition to the compost. It's thin and it breaks down quickly, and it's got lots of good nutrients. Ugh. Things that are really woody or stocky, like what's left over from my leeks, the wooden stem, you can add them as long as you chop them up really fine. Things like banana peels, if they're finely chopped, I add them. Left whole, I find they can get tough and leathery and it's hard for them to break down. It's not really worth the effort. In my kitchen, I keep 2 compost bins. One for stuff that I'm going to put in my compost, and other things that I'm not going to put in my compost bin. So this here is the compost bin from my kitchen. Nothing hard or pitted or woody. This will break down quickly, increase the temperature of my compost bin, and give me good compost fast. Here's some dead tomato clippings. Although they're green, and I clipped them when they were green, I would consider these greens and not brown. So this will be high nitrogen content for my garden. These cut leek bulbs are excellent for your compost bin. Coffee grounds are another great component to your compost bin. Peppercorns are a great thing to add to your compost. They're nice and soft. Here we have apple skins and sweet potato peels. These are perfect as they're fibrous, nice, nutritious greens, easy to break down. Things I would not recommend in your compost bin that I put out for the curb is the filter for the coffee. They don't break down that well, and quite frankly, I don't want to have this in my compost bin. When it comes to eggshells, I make sure I crush up the eggshell before I put it in my compost. Leaving them whole, it takes a long time for them to break down, and when you're reaching your hand in, I have found them rather uncomfortable as they're quite sharp. Don't add things like paper towels, because God knows what this has been touching in my house. Avocado skins or something else I don't recommend, or peach pits. These things are really hard and take a long time to break down. Don't add pine cones either, even the small ones, as these are more acidic. You don't want to change the pH of your compost. And even though they're small, they take forever to break down. Ugh. Battling this weed for ages. Don't add meats or dairy to your compost. Add nice whole grain breads. Don't add sugary, starchy products. Don't add newspaper. I don't recommend it. I don't want the ink and contaminants in my compost. Shavings from hamster cages are like a 2-for-1. You get the browns because you have the cedar bits, and you get the greens because you get the hamster poop. So it's a brown and green combo. Now ideally you would have a layer of greens and then a thicker layer of browns. A good ratio would be 3-to-1. In the summer that's more difficult as you don't have a lot of brown material available. So anything that has been dead that you chop up would be a great component to your compost bin. But at this point, last fall, I would have put in probably 2 feet worth of leaves. So I've overcompensated in browns in one season, and then you overcompensate for greens for another. So what you have to do here is agitate the layers to try to get the browns to mix with the greens, get that air to mix in, and get that bacteria to start working on your greens and browns, your nitrogen and your carbons. You know you're making good compost when you can stick your hand in and feel a little bit of warmth. You want it moist but not soggy. If you start to get a bad smell, it probably means you have too many greens and you need to add more browns. When you're adding leaves, don't add them in a full layer. You want to mix them in, or else you get like a slimy film that like traps the compost. Now water is an important ingredient for compost too. As you can see, mine is damp. This is perfect growth for the bacteria. Too dry and they will die. This lattice lets air and water in, but it keeps out about 90% of the sun so that it doesn't dry out. So if you're going to be building a compost bin, I recommend lattice tops. Another thing I created is a sifter. This is a great way to sprinkle your compost in, shake it, and take out the unwanted things. Whether there's any pine cones or stones or pieces of sticks, this will help make sure that you get a very soft, fertile soil to plant in and amongst your garden. One sure tell sign that your compost bin is getting ready to be used in your garden is when you start to see worms. The worms mean that it's cool enough now that they can come live in it because the bacteria make it hot. So it goes adding browns and greens, bacteria and heat, and then the worms. When you get the worms, you know it's a time to put it in your garden. You want to try and use your oldest compost first. So at the bottom of my compost bin, I have here an access point. And this is where I can dig out all my good rich dirt. Well, thank you for watching my video on composting. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, click like, and good luck in making your own compost.